Welcome to the Hasson Studio and our introduction to the Speedball bent nib pens. In this section, we'll be going over the Speedball D nib pen with the oval tip. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the D series nib. The D series nib might be one of my favorites. It's a very casual nib. It probably won't be the most useful nib as far as variety goes, but there are definitely specific purposes. This nib is an oval style nib. These are some early nibs. You'll see that groove in the top. These nibs are probably from the 1920s, maybe up to about 1930. One of the most beautiful treatments they've had with these nibs. These are called camelbacks. And so that extra step in the process, I'm sure, was eliminated to save money at some point. But the D nib makes what's called a blunt serif. So this is a poster artist from the early 1900s who's an American named F.G. Cooper. F.G. Cooper did a lot of World War I and World War II posters and was famous for his blunt serifed work. If you can imagine being across the street trying to read a poster in a classic Roman form with very thin serifs, you will know that the thins on a Roman form are lost, but a blunt serif is easy to read from a farther way away. So he did his own Roman form, and here's a couple of examples of posters that he did around this time. He's also famous for working with New York Edison. He did these figures of these colonial figures, these cartoon figures, and these became really popular. Other artists began to emulate him. You actually can still see his influence if you drive by the auto parts store Pep Boys. Manny, Mo, and Jack are influenced by some of these original figures from F.G. Cooper. Hans Rudy Oert was also a poster artist also at this time. He utilized the blunt serif in almost all of his posters. Gorgeous work. You can take a look at the bar riche on the lower left, and you can see that influence in the American artist Coles Phillips. Again, same style of blunt serif, and it really gives that treatment, again, a vintage look of the time. Here's another one that was used with this style of pen, although with probably there's a little bit of drawing involved in this particular one, but look at that artwork. There's no dress there. There's just sort of this outline. I love the artwork from this time. This is also, I believe, Coles Phillips. Found in the archives of Ross George, here's that same blunt serif style. And then perhaps one of the most famous Ross George styles, Metropolitan Poster, was also done with this type of pen. It was a built-up letter style, so he'd make a single stroke on one side, perhaps a double stroke to thicken up the thicks, and then he came back in with white and added what's called an inline in order to give this particular poster style a bit more depth. In my particular case, I've used this style in order to create the book cover for the book Teaching America How to Letter, which is the Speedball story. This is a blunt serifed alphabet that I was asked to do by my art director who designed this particular cover. He designed it with a font as an example and then asked me to do the hand lettering. These are the original comps that I did. He wanted actually to see, he wanted me to use walnut ink so he could see the darks and the lights of the lettering in here. And so this was a wonderful way in order to work with the blunt serif and have just a little bit more of readability. These are all done again at approximately 1 inch and they're reduced. Different styles of how I wanted to do my name, which R I wanted to use, so on and so forth. So let's talk really quickly about that D pen. We'll go ahead and use the Speedball D style pen. I'll use the largest pen. And in keeping with the spirit of using the pen, I'm going to set the whole shoe of the pen on the page. But now, and one of the reasons calligraphers might find this pen just a little easier to use, is that you're going to keep the pen on a consistent angle, just like we're used to with a broad edge pen. So I'm going to set this D pen down, and I'm simply going to make my mark. I'm going to choose, in my particular style of alphabet, to make an angled exit serif. So in this particular case, I'm going to leave that on an angle, not flat. And I'm going to not actually touch the stem stroke in order to make the bowl. And that's my A. So these pens, by the way, if you've never seen these oval pens, the reason you've never seen them is because they've been out of production for quite a few years, I believe since 1997. So you might be able to find them on eBay, you might be able to find them in art stores that still have Speedball displays. They may have some of these. Paper and Ink Arts and John Neal probably will have some of these if you want to order online. But order quick because they're not going to be around for a long, long time. Again, I've decided angled entry and angled exit stroke. So I'm going to angle my entry stroke. I'm going to pull straight down. I'm going to spring out of the stem stroke for my branching for my B. I'm going to come back down and work with it. Again, on the C, I'm going to start just below the waistline, come around. I'm twisting the pen to finish this just a little bit to get that rounded edge. And then I'm going to rotate the pen just a bit in order to get the top of the C. It wasn't the best rotation that I've ever seen. Also, if I wanted to make a characteristic 20s style G, I'm going to make like I make an upside down S, I'm going to make an upside down G. I'm going to make the bowl of this G larger than I normally would. I'm going to add sort of just an ear, and then I'm going to make the tail of the G much smaller than I normally would. And so in keeping with that show card style, the S and the G, very often they would make sort of upside down. And so these are typical show card style or 1920s styles, made very easily with the D pen. I hope that this has given you some ideas on how to use these pens. I'd really encourage you to give them a try. And by the way, I've created a whole class on these bent nib pens. So you'll see just below me the sandiaworkshops.art. That is the website that I'll be hosting these on. You can go to my page and sign up for the email list. There's 5 different sections. Also, when you go to sign up, you will get an article that's written by both myself and Michael Clark. It was published in Bound and Lettered, and it's an article on how to use the bent nib and some of the techniques that both Michael and I use. There's a sign up button. You can get that free download and read to your heart's content. And then these are each of the class sections. You'll be able to select an individual class or sign up for a package. So thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time.